The first light of dawn spreads across the African horizon, a slow, golden breath awakening the world. The air trembles with the sound of distant drums and the songs of birds rising with the sun. Somewhere beneath a vast baobab tree, an elder sits quietly, his eyes following the horizon. His hands are old, strong, and weathered, yet his presence feels timeless, as if he carries not just his own years, but the memory of countless generations before him. He speaks softly, not to anyone in particular, but as if the earth itself is listening. He says, Ubuntu, Ngumuntu, Ngabantu. A person is a person through other people. This is Ubuntu, one of the oldest and most beautiful ideas to come from the African continent. And yet, it is more than a philosophy. It is a way of living, a rhythm of being, a truth so simple that the modern world, in all its noise and speed, has nearly forgotten it. Ubuntu means, I am because we are. It tells us that our humanity is not individual, but shared, that no one exists alone, that the joy, pain, and purpose of life are woven together, threads of the same endless cloth. Today, we live in a world that praises independence but fears vulnerability. We build walls around our hearts, chase success at any cost, and measure worth in likes and numbers. Yet deep inside, we feel an emptiness that no achievement can fill. We've conquered the world but lost each other. Ubuntu offers a different kind of power, one that begins not with control, but with connection. Long before the West spoke of democracy, before psychology gave language to empathy, African societies were already built on the idea of shared existence. In many tribes, the community came before the individual, not as oppression, but as belonging. When someone was sick, the village cared for them. When a child was born, everyone became family. When someone died, the whole community mourned, because the loss of one was the loss of all. This was not charity, it was survival of the soul. An elder once said, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That proverb, carried across generations, captures the essence of Ubuntu. Life is not a race to the finish line, it's a journey we take hand in hand. Desmond Tutu, one of Ubuntu's most profound voices, described it like this: when I dehumanize you, I dehumanize myself. The solitary human being is a contradiction in terms. Ubuntu is not only about kindness, it's about identity. You exist through the recognition of others. Your smile, your laughter, your very being, they come alive in the mirror of another soul. Imagine a time when conflict arose in an African village. The offender was not cast out or imprisoned. Instead, they were brought to the center of the village, surrounded by everyone, family, neighbors, elders, children. And for 2 days they were reminded not of their crime, but of their goodness. Every person would stand and recall something beautiful about them, an act of courage, a moment of kindness, a memory of laughter. They were not punished, they were reclaimed. The goal was not revenge, but restoration, to bring the person back into the circle of humanity. That is Ubuntu justice. The belief that every soul, no matter how lost, can be called back by compassion. Now contrast that with our modern world, where mistakes are broadcast online, where forgiveness is rare, where judgment is instant,
We have built digital villages without true community. We scroll past suffering, retweet outrage, and move on. But Ubuntu reminds us that what happens to one happens to all. The pain we ignore today returns to us tomorrow in another form. The ancient wisdom of Ubuntu asks a radical question. What if we saw ourselves in everyone we met? Across Africa, Ubuntu guided everything, from how communities shared food to how leaders ruled. Kings were not rulers, but custodians of harmony. Elders were not distant authorities, but living libraries of memory and moral compass. Even in times of scarcity, Ubuntu taught that abundance could be found in generosity. A family might have little, yet still feed a stranger before themselves. For giving did not create loss, it created meaning. The late Nelson Mandela embodied this truth. After 27 years in prison, he emerged not with bitterness, but with compassion. He once said, "As I walked out the door toward freedom, I knew that if I didn't leave my bitterness behind, I'd still be in prison." Mandela's forgiveness was not weakness. It was the purest form of strength, the power to see humanity even in one's oppressor. That too is Ubuntu. It demands that we see the divine in each other, even when it's hidden beneath wounds and fear. There's an old story told by a missionary who once visited an African village. He placed a basket of fruit under a tree and told the children that whoever reached it first could have all of it. The children looked at each other, smiled, took hands, and ran together. Then they sat and shared the fruit equally. The missionary was confused. Why did you all go together when one of you could have had the fruit for yourself? The children laughed and said, "How can one of us be happy if all the others are sad?" That's Ubuntu, the understanding that your joy is incomplete if it comes at the cost of someone else's pain.
But Ubuntu is not only a social philosophy, it's deeply spiritual. It recognizes that we are connected not just to each other, but to everything, to the earth, to the ancestors, to the unseen web of life itself. In traditional belief, a person's spirit continues to exist within the community long after death. Ancestors are not gone, they are living through us, guiding, watching, and reminding us of who we are. Every birth, every marriage, every ritual is a renewal of that bond between the living and the dead, between the individual and the infinite. Ubuntu says to harm another is to disturb the balance of the entire universe. It invites humility, the understanding that you are part of something vast, something sacred. In this way, Ubuntu mirrors the insights of Eastern wisdom and Western existentialism, yet remains uniquely African. Where Nietzsche asked, "What makes life worth living?" Ubuntu answers, "Life is worth living because we live it together." Modern science is finally catching up to this ancient wisdom. Neuroscientists now speak of mirror neurons, cells in our brain that allow us to feel what others feel. When we see someone in pain, our brain reacts as if it's our own. Empathy is not a concept, it's biology. But in the digital age, we have dulled that instinct. We scroll through headlines of suffering as if they were entertainment. We mistake connection for connectivity.
We measure relationships in notifications, not in shared presence. Ubuntu offers an antidote to that loneliness. It reminds us that happiness is not a possession, it's a relationship. It cannot be hoarded, it multiplies when shared. Psychologists studying happiness in modern societies found something remarkable. People who volunteer, who give time to others, who build community, live longer and report deeper fulfillment. Ubuntu knew this all along. It told us that peace and purpose are not found in what we own, but in what we give of ourselves. To live with Ubuntu in today's world does not require grand gestures. It begins in small, quiet acts. When you listen instead of judging, when you forgive someone who doesn't ask for it, when you smile at a stranger or share what little you have, when you treat every human being, no matter their background, as sacred. Ubuntu is lived not in temples or textbooks, but in the spaces between people. It is the mother sharing food with a hungry child that isn't hers. It is the friend who stays when everyone else leaves. It is the teacher who sees not just a student, but a future. Each act of compassion, no matter how small, restores a piece of humanity's broken fabric. There is a quiet revolution happening in the world, one that doesn't make headlines. In South Africa, schools now teach children to resolve conflicts using Ubuntu principles through listening, empathy, and shared responsibility. In Rwanda, after the genocide, communities rebuilt trust by sitting together, perpetrators and survivors, sharing their stories and healing through Ubuntu circles. Even in business, Ubuntu leadership is emerging, where profit is balanced with purpose and employees are treated as family. These are not just moral choices, they are strategies for survival in a world that's forgetting how to care. Because without connection, no amount of progress can save us. Without Ubuntu, technology becomes cold, power becomes cruelty, and freedom becomes isolation. A truly human future requires Ubuntu. It requires remembering that we are part of something much greater than ourselves, that life itself is a gift that must be cherished and shared.
Look around the world today. Wars, divisions, hatred. The more we build, the more we seem to destroy. Every ideology claims to hold the answer, yet humanity drifts further apart. Ubuntu does not promise perfection, it promises remembrance. It says, you already have what you need to heal the world. You just have to see yourself in others. The African elder under the baobab tree looks at the children playing in the dust, laughing freely, and smiles. The world has changed, the cities, the machines, the screens, but the truth remains. Humanity cannot survive as fragments. As the sun sets, his voice returns, low and steady. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. His words echo the spirit of Rumi, of Buddha, of all wisdom that points to the same truth, that life's meaning is not in separation, but in unity. If we practiced Ubuntu today, what would our lives look like? We would slow down. We would listen before we speak. We would measure success not by how much we own, but by how much peace we create. We would build societies where forgiveness is strength and empathy is leadership. Imagine walking through your day, seeing everyone, the cashier, the driver, the colleague, as part of you. Imagine feeling their pain as your own, their joy as your own. That is the heart of Ubuntu. And it's not just an idea, it's a practice. Every time you choose kindness over pride, you're living Ubuntu. Every time you lift someone who has fallen, you're continuing an ancient legacy of humanity's deepest truth. The elder's fire burns low now. Stars rise above him in the ink-blue sky, swirling in motion like brushstrokes of Van Gogh's Starry Night. He whispers one last time, Ubuntu, because without each other, we are nothing. And somewhere, across oceans and time zones, those words still travel in the laughter of children, in the warmth of strangers, in the quiet choices of those who refuse to forget our shared soul. Peace is not something to be found, it's something to be remembered. And purpose is not a destination, it's the gift we give to one another simply by being human. So, when the world feels cold, when the noise grows unbearable, return to this truth. You are because we are. Let it guide your steps. Let it soften your heart. Let it remind you that the only way to heal the world is together.